explaining what it is, and then I have so many other questions, but let's just dig in right away.
Yeah, of course. So Ayurveda is a 5,000-year-old medical system from India. It's actually a complete medical system. It's also called a consciousness-based system of health and wellness, and it includes prevention of disease, as well as the curative aspect of disease, including diagnosis and treatment. But it's holistic in the sense that it includes the whole person and all aspects of a person's life. So it's going to
Hmm.
include not only your diet, exercise program, but it's also going to include your emotional health, your spiritual health, your relationships, your job satisfaction, your purpose in life. So an Ayurvedic physician is really going to look at all the aspects of your life and not simply looking at a set of symptoms.
So it sounds like it's a combination of kind of, bringing a psychologist in and maybe a life coach and a medical doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. When I do Ayurvedic consultations, I kind of wear all of those hats at the same
Yeah.
time. And you'd be surprised as to how much people actually open up and because you listen to them. That's the thing, is that most of us feel
Yeah.
like we're not listened to. When we go to the doctors, they have so little time to be with us that
Yeah.
we feel like that they're not really treating us, they're just treating that symptom.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that everything's connected, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you cannot possibly disconnect aspects of your life. Um, I gave out a little statistic that more men die at 9 a.m. on Monday morning of cardiac arrest than any other time of the week. And so you think about Monday morning at 9
Wow.
a.m., where is everybody? Everybody's at their job at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. And
Right.
we're the only animal that has a precise time of death that's higher than any other time. And it's just
That's
because there's
crazy.
such a large mind-body connection between, your work, your career, your emotional health, your physical health. Everything is interrelated.
Yeah. So when you were, was it back in 2008 that you were diagnosed with cancer?
It was even further back than that. It was in 1999. I
Okay.
was 28 years old. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I was a mom with two small kids. I was a school teacher, and I had no idea even what a thyroid was. I was going
Yeah.
into my OBGYN office for a routine. Actually, I'd had some breakthrough bleeding, and I wasn't really certain what it was for, but the physician that saw me at the time walked straight into the room, and he said to me, "Who's taking care of your thyroid problem?" Well, I was so out of connection with who I was and what I looked like that I didn't even notice the large tumor on the side of my neck. But he noticed it
Wow.
right when he
Well,
walked
you
in the
were a
room.
mom of young children. That'll do it, right?
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, so I had that devastating news, and it really changed my life having that diagnosis. But I did go through traditional medical treatment after
Hmm.
a lot of, I was kind of rushed into it, but I had surgery, radioactive iodine therapy. I actually had two surgeries. Um, but I really wanted to know why I got the illness in the first place. I wasn't satisfied with, okay, we're just going to treat you. We're going to treat this disease. We're going to treat these symptoms. I
Right.
wanted to know why.
What did you find out? I mean, did it play into everything that you believe about Ayurveda?
Yeah, well, what happened was, I was always health conscious. I started yoga when I was 18. I did some mindfulness meditation, although meditation really wasn't at the, top of my list. But I
Right.
became mostly vegetarian at age 18. So I felt like I was living a rather healthy lifestyle. Uh, so I was always interested in alternative methods of medicine. However, when I asked the physicians, okay, how did I get cancer? What caused my cancer? The physicians could never answer my questions. I asked everybody, from the surgeon to the person who was
Hmm.
doing the radioactive iodine therapy to the endocrinologist to the general practitioners, and
Yeah.
nobody could give me a clear answer. They said, we just don't know. We don't know what causes cancer. And for me, that wasn't satisfying enough. I said, there must be something. There must be something that
Hmm.
I allowed myself to get this sick at age 28. There must
Hmm.
be something. And really, that
Hmm.
began my quest to searching for the reasons why. And a friend of mine handed me Dr. Deepak Chopra's book, Perfect Health, which introduced me to Ayurveda. And finally, I found a system that understood my question.
And how did it understand your question?
Well, since Ayurveda works on balance versus imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling great and healthy and joyful and vibrant and you wake up in the morning wanting to take on the world, you're in balance. Your body is balanced and you're feeling great. But when you're
Right.
starting to feel out of balance, there are certain symptoms that creep up. So maybe you might have a sense of fatigue or not really well, or maybe you've
Mm-hmm.
been more sad or anxious or stressed than usual, or maybe you're just not satisfied with one of your relationships and it's really been bothering you, or maybe you've had a whole host of symptoms. Well, our body gives us these little signals that tell us, hey, something's going out of whack here. Well, since Ayurveda really takes you to the root cause of where those symptoms are coming from, you can diagnose and you can get to the root cause of what's causing that illness, because illness doesn't just happen overnight. So you
Right.
can really get to the root cause of what's going on to create that imbalance.
So a
So
big part of this is really bringing awareness to yourself, right?
absolutely, it's all about
So in
self-awareness.
on some level you must have recognized that you were ignoring some of these symptoms
Absolutely. Well,
that maybe wouldn't have prevented the cancer, but maybe would have led you to the doctor earlier or to make some kind of change in your life,
well, yeah, it's
or
always
no?
hard to say with a disease such as cancer. It's always hard to say, but the truth of the matter is that disease does not happen overnight. It takes years and years to
Yeah.
develop. And if we do detect the signs of imbalance early, then yes, we can prevent illness from happening. Now, I say 90% of it's preventative. 10% is left up to nature, God, spirit, the universe. We just don't know that other 10%. But 90%
Right.
of it is absolutely preventable. If you get to know yourself, you get to know what makes you tick. In Ayurveda, we focus on mind-body type. So understanding your mind-body
Mhm.
type and understanding what nutritionally you can do, what you can do in your exercise plan, or even emotionally that you can do
Right.
to prevent yourself from becoming ill.
So, what do those types look like? You have an assessment in the book, which is great. I love assessments. I love a good assessment. Um, I always have them in my books too, just because I think it's nice to give people an opportunity to understand themselves a little bit more in a very concrete way. So, um, these questions that you ask in here, and it's such a mix. I was really surprised, from like I walk quickly, which by the way I do. I'm a slow runner, but a fast walker. To statements like I get bored easily.
Yes. So really what we're trying to determine is, in an Ayurvedic mind-body type, are three principal mind-body types based on the five elements that exist everywhere on Earth and the universe. And the five elements that Ayurveda uses are space, air, fire, water, and earth. And out of those five elements come these three mind-body types. So when you're taking that Ayurvedic mind-body type test, you're focusing on finding the most dominant mind-body type, which is called a dosha in Sanskrit. So you're trying to find your most dominant dosha, and that will determine how your treatments go. That will determine, and it is like a personality type test, but it's also
Hmm.
not only personality, but it's physical as well. So it's working with what kind of body type you are as well.
Yeah,
So
because you have in there statements like I've been, thin all my life. It's difficult for me to gain weight, kind of
right,
thing, right?
exactly, yeah. So the mind body type is just that. It's not only your personality and your physical type, but it's your emotions as well. So different mind body types are going to react differently to different situations. So there are three, actually, and as I mentioned, so the first one is called Vata, V-A-T-A, and it's comprised of those two elements of space and air. Then the second one is called Pitta, P-I-T-T-A, and it's comprised of fire and water, which seem opposite, but they actually do work together. And the last one is called Kapha, K-A-P-H-A, and that's comprised of water and earth. And so very different types, but we can also be a combination of two of those types, and very rarely all three. But we do have all three within us, but
Hmm.
we typically have one or two that are the most dominant.
So you're looking for the dominant type.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. You're looking for the one that's dominant. Now, this is one that's dominant throughout your whole life. And So
This
for
is like your genetic makeup
this is
in a
your
way.
genetic
Okay.
code. Exactly. And,
Okay.
5,000 years ago, even 3,000 years ago, the scientists of the time in India didn't understand what genetics were, and this is how they used that. This is how they
Mm-hmm.
determined genetics, definitely.
So this determines like your diet, how, and like you said, your treatment if you had some kind of a disease,
Hmm.
maybe the type of exercise that you should engage in. That is,
Absolutely.
explain to people how specific it gets
Yeah, it's
based upon your
really,
type.
really specific, actually. So, yeah, it is used for disease treatment as well. So, for example, each mind-body type is going to exhibit a certain amount of symptoms that are regular to that mind-body type. So, for example, the Vata type, as I mentioned, that's comprised of space and air. A Vata type is going to typically, when they go out of balance, be a little bit anxious, be worried. They tend to have a lot of fears. They might get night terrors or nightmares. They experience insomnia. From the physical body, they have dry eyes, dry skin. They might experience constipation. And so you can use that to understand what your weaknesses are. And when you start to see those weaknesses within yourself through diet, exercise, emotional clearing, spiritual practices such as meditation,
Hmm.
yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, you can rebalance yourself before you get ill. On the other side, when illness is present, there are certain illnesses that are a manifestation of these mind-body types. So let me give you an example. Any bleeding disorders, so someone who's bleeding from the rectum, someone who is bleeding profusely, for example, in a menstrual cycle, those are pitta disorders because pitta exists in the blood. And so
Huh.
instead of treating something as a full-blown illness, what Ayurveda is going to do is they're going to treat the pitta. So you're going to understand how to get that pitta into control that's out of control. And usually, because you're treating the actual root of what is happening, because what's happening is that pitta is running in excess, and so you have to somehow reverse it if there's excess bleeding. And so, from an Ayurvedic standpoint, what you're doing is you're going to reverse those symptoms, and you're going to really get to the root cause of what's causing it in the first place, versus running a whole gamut of tests and, being inconclusive as to what's going wrong, which allopathy does. And allopathic medicine or Western medicine is completely useful in many situations. But in other situations, there's a lot of holes in the system, if you will.
Right.
And so that's where Ayurveda can really fill in treatment.
And also, you're talking about this in terms of preventative too, right? So
Absolutely.
once you, like, as you went through this, and you learned so much about this, did you feel like there were things you could have done to prevent your thyroid cancer, or was it just that you would have detected it earlier?
You know, here's the thing. The thing with cancer, now, besides the tumor itself, and I don't even know how long it was there
Right.
before the
Right.
doctor saw it, so I can't say with great precision. The thing with a disease such as cancer is that cancer is typically non-symptomatic until it's in its later stages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I can't say with precision that I would have been able to detect cancer early because most cancers are non-symptomatic. However, I would have noticed variations and changes in my mind body.
Okay.
So I would have noticed, for example, well, first of all, nutrition and diet and eating. I would have eaten differently,
Okay.
but I also would have managed stress differently. But really, what for me, and this is in the book as well, one of the big things, among others, but one of the big things is that I noticed a pattern in my own illnesses throughout time. And I worked through this system of chakras, which chakras are wheels of energy, and there are 7 main chakras from the base of the spine up through to the crown of the head. And what I noticed was that the thyroid is in the throat, which is part of the 5th chakra, which is the throat chakra. And that chakra is the communication chakra. It's about expressing yourself
Oh, that's
truthfully.
so interesting, right?
It's about expressing yourself with authenticity. It's speaking your highest truth.
Mm.
And every illness that I had, if I could trace it back to my childhood, was in the throat. Everything. I had an abscess in my throat when I was 17. I had mononucleosis. My throat was almost closed shut. I constantly got tonsillitis, strep throat throughout my entire childhood. Everything was
Wow.
about the throat, and it culminated with this thyroid cancer in the throat. So
That's crazy.
once I made those mind-body connections, I said, okay, what do I need to work through in this chakra, in this area of the body that I'm not
Yeah.
speaking my highest truth? And
Oh, that's
so,
so great.
isn't it
Hold it.
amazing?
We're gonna do a little teaser. We have to go to break. So save the rest of this. And for when we come back from our break, you're listening to Michelle Fondon. She is the author of The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, an easy guide to a healthy lifestyle. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you.
Thank you.
XOXOXO.
Great job,
Want
Joe.
to
That was
snuggle.
super smooth.
JK. Hit me back.
Can you hear
You
me?
getting these texts? Question mark. We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy.
Oh, good.
Holla
Thanks so
back.
much. You're doing a great
Holla
job.
back. Holla
Very
back.
smooth.
Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know
whatever
at
you can
that'snotcool.com.
always do that too, as long as I can
That's
hear it.
not
Sometimes I can't hear
cool.com.
it as well, but
Brought
yeah,
to you by the Ad Council.
we'll work together.
Hi, I'm Michelle Skeen,
Yeah.
psychologist, author, and host
What
of
the hell is
Relationships
going on?
2.0. On my radio show, I interview guests who present their unique
Okay.
perspectives
Are we
and
back after
expertise
this?
on topics that cover all aspects of relationship. If you want to improve your relationship,
Wounded
and let's
Warrior
face it,
one?
we all have room for improvement. Tune in to Relationships 2.0 with Dr. Michelle Skeen. If you miss my show or you're interested in listening to past podcasts, you can go to my website, www.michelleskeen.com. Again, www.michelleskeen.com. Tune in and improve your relationships.
There are kids in this country who didn't have a parent at their baseball games or recitals because their parents were serving in faraway places. But now they're coming home, and Wounded Warrior Project assists them through the Warriors to Work program.
My mom used to be a tank programmer. Now she works with computers. I'm really glad she's home because I can't eat my dad's marshmallow macaroni anymore.
To support the Warriors to Work program, contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm chatting with Michelle Fondon, author of The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda. Thanks, Michelle. So as we left off, you were talking about all of the issues with your throat.
Yes. And so I began going through the reasoning behind this and making connections as to why I wasn't speaking my highest truth and what had I been holding back about. And I really worked through a lot of those issues and said, you know what, I'm done with this lesson. I don't need this lesson anymore.
Right.
And really that really helped my healing tremendously. But that's the kind of mind-body connection that Ayurveda brings you.
Well, it feels like a nice transition into a topic in your book that I'm really interested in and I think is really important for everyone, and that is the life purpose piece.
Absolutely. So I really believe, and I put it purposefully, no pun intended, but I purposely put the life's purpose in the beginning of the book. And one of the reasons why I did this is that throughout the years in my practice, what I've noticed in counseling people with Ayurveda is that I found that most people who are coming in with some major illnesses that they lack purpose, or they haven't found their purpose, or they really don't have full meaning in their lives.
Right.
And I really believe wholeheartedly that if you are serving, if you're using your life's purpose to serve others and to live through your highest self, I really believe that illness goes by the wayside, because when you're really living from your heart space and living your highest passion and truly living from that space and serving others, that you're living so authentically and in connection with the rest of the universe that illness just doesn't have time to take root. So I really believe that that's so important to healing.
Yeah. And I love that in your book, because I think this is really important to help people who don't have a clear life purpose or who aren't sure what that all means. So your chapter gives people a way to kind of identify what they might be drawn to, what might be their life purpose. Maybe you can give an example of one of your clients who's come to you who struggled with this and wasn't sure about what their life purpose was, and the way that you were able to help them make connections with things that bring meaning to their lives as a way to identify their life purpose.
Well, I have a beautiful story that actually just happened recently. A few weeks back, I held a weekend called the Perfect Health Weekend with Ayurveda. And one of my clients, I've known her for a very long time, since about the beginning of my business in 2008. And ever since I've met her, she works for the government, very successful. But ever since I met her, and she's only in her mid-50s, and she has been counting down the days to her retirement, to retire from the government. And, she's so young, very vibrant. And I said, Chris, how is it that someone like you is just looking forward to retirement? I just don't get it. What are you going to do for the rest of your life?
Right.
And she's like, oh, no, I'm so looking forward to my retirement. I'm just geeked. She's actually retiring in June. So she came to this Perfect Health Weekend because she's dealing with some health issues. And when we did this exercise, we all went through this exercise together, and she discovered that she wasn't done. Now, she was maybe done with the government, but she discovered her own hidden talents and that she loves cooking. She loves preparing food for others, and she just has this passion about cooking. And so she said that that's definitely going to be her second career now, is she's going to find a way to live her life's purpose in her retirement, but do this instead as a second career. And she said, had I not done this exercise, I would have never opened up to this possibility. I would have never even thought of this possibility. I just would be content with just retiring.
Yeah.
And so that is what gives you passion, because I know other people, and I have a relative who also retired very early, about 53 or 54. And I asked him why. Why did you retire so early? And he just said, well, I just have this feeling that I'm not going to live very long. And I said,
wow.
Okay. So, now he quickly got ill after he retired and struggled with illness, and he passed away, and I believe he was about 63. So it just goes to show you that someone with purpose and someone who does not have that sense of purpose or higher purpose, and what their lives look like, what their health looks like.
Yeah. And that's so interesting. Like in both cases, you're talking about retirement and this idea that, people work, but the real joy comes once they're done working and they've retired. And then this kind of I feel like it's a little bit of a dated concept, but I think people still buy into it, that the true joy of living and doing what you really love comes after you stop working when you're older. And I think that, very appropriately, you're pointing out this is, the life purpose is about having all of that at the same time, right?
Absolutely. And, most of us, if you think about it, most of us don't have the energy or the health when we actually do retire to enjoy our life's purpose. Now, certain people do. But in the book, I really explain how you can integrate your passions, your talents, how you can integrate that into your life today. It doesn't have to be a career. It's great if it's a career. It's wonderful if it works out like that. But it might be a moonlighting career. And I mentioned about my sister's friend who works in a museum by day. By night, he creates these cuffs, which are like some sort of bracelets that are leather made with studs. And so he just created this concept and idea. He gets all of his materials at thrift shops, and he probably makes them for like 25 cents each. He goes to these trade shows and sells them for $25 a piece. And
he's making it's like a good business too.
It's a good business. He makes more money creating these cuffs than he does working in a museum. So it's just and he does that moonlighting. So he works on these cuffs at night. So, people have found ways in order to use their passions and keep it current. You could do it as a volunteer position.
Right.
But really feeling that feeling of being alive inside.
Right. So it can be an expression of someone's creativity and artistry, but it's also that whole idea, I feel like you're saying in the book, which is that you're creating some kind of a connection with other people. You're getting outside of yourself. You're giving to someone else, and that is something that we all know is very energizing when you're helping other people, giving of yourself, and experiencing that kind of exchange.
Absolutely. Living your purpose it means nothing if you're inside your room with the door closed. It's just not. We're designed to be social creatures. We're designed to be social beings, and more the society is becoming very isolated, even with the rapid communication we have today.
No, it's the paradox of social media,
paradox.
right?
And
we are wired to connect. We're wired to connect in purpose. In person, not with machinery between us or technology as the form of connection. It's important to be with people.
Absolutely, and just everything, even the energy that we feel with others' aura, with others' energy, we just feel it, and that in and of itself is energizing. So our purpose is about serving others. It's about how can I contribute to your life? How can I make your life better? And
it's this beautiful feedback loop. I think you even mentioned in your book about connection with animals and having an animal to take care of if you're someone who lives alone, or it couldn't even be tending to a garden, and bringing life to that, right?
Absolutely. My mom, I never understood gardening, but my mother takes such pride in her garden, and she lives alone, and she makes this beautiful garden with all types of flowers and vegetables, and it's just amazing. And when I see the results of her hard labor and her hard work, it's just so beautiful. And so that in and of itself, you're creating something. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be, as you mentioned, doesn't necessarily have to be something creative. But I also tell a story about a woman who worked in a grocery store who was the cashier. When my oldest child was an infant, I would go to this local grocery store every week, maybe twice a week sometimes with a baby. And this woman, she was the most joyous and cheerful checkout person that I had ever seen in my whole entire life. She always had this big smile, and she was happy and laughing and talking to you and engaging you, and she just made my day every single time I went to that grocery store. And, she was living her purpose in her job. She was living her purpose. It may not have been the most glamorous job, but she was so content doing it, and she was happy doing it. And happy to serve others, and that showed.
I think we have to be really careful not to judge people's choices, that there's nothing better than ordering a coffee from someone who loves what they're doing and loves making that coffee or that coffee drink, you know?
Absolutely. And, and we kind of overlook that sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
and I just think about the people that make my day during the day. And it's those people in service that you have to go to the coffee shop, the grocery store. I always said that I was very sad when they started making the toll booths automated, because we have a lot of tolls in the D.C. area, and now most of them are automated. But I really enjoyed interacting with the person at the toll booth. I just said it's just that human interaction that is so needed and really craved.
Yeah, it's funny. I have, when I take my dogs out for a run in the morning, there are the same people who I always kind of pass, the guy who's power washing the sidewalk area, or just like these people who are along the way. It could even be like a homeless person. And I took my daughter on a run with me the other day. And as I was saying hi to these people and they were saying hi to me, oh, haven't seen you for a while and all that kind of stuff, I was explaining to her like each person's, role and how it makes my day to have these little brief interactions. We don't even know each other's names, but we know each other. And it's just like this connection that just, I don't know, gives this little oxytocin boost.
Exactly.
So that's really important. Let's move to another section of the book. So one of the other things that's part of the wheel is its past experiences. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's healing your past.
Okay, healing your past. So that's a big thing. And I can see where that could really contribute to some ill health.
Mm-hmm. So
if it wasn't dealt with, I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
For some people. So that can be a place of some real toxicity.
Absolutely. And I think most of us carry some of our past in the negative aspect.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, we have a negativity bias, so it's always going to be that, right?
Right. So we have this past, and most of the past you can tell by people's stories, and that's what I talk about in the book, is that when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you're usually hearing some version of their story.
Right.
And they might introduce themselves as, hi, I'm Sue, I've been dealing with diabetes, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, or I'm a lawyer. And they usually infuse some of their past story into that conversation. And
give an example of that, because I think that will be really interesting.
Yeah. So
what might that look like?
That might look like, for example, hi, my name is Michelle. My mom was a single mom growing up, and she raised us two girls, and she was a waitress, and she put herself through school, and she was never there. My sister and I basically raised ourselves. Mm-hmm. That is an example of the story. Now, for me, that's a true story. However, I didn't give the other half of the story. The other half of the story is the sacrifices that my mother also made. Mm-hmm. She put us in ballet 5 days a week. She was at every school play. She homemade our lunches and wrote little notes on the napkins every single day and put stickers inside of our lunch boxes. So I can give two sides of the same story.
Sure.
And most often when we're really holding on to the toxicity of the past, we're only giving the negative side of the story and getting into that victim mindset. And it's the danger in that is when you stay rooted in the victim mindset, in that this is something that happened to me and it's affecting who I am today.
Right. So one of the things that, that I look at in the way that I help people is that we really didn't have any control over what happened when we were younger, but now we do, and empowering people. And it sounds like you do the same thing to get out of this. Yes, at some point we are kind of victims to whatever, environment we're growing up in, but then at some point, when we're free of that environment, we can make the changes. We have to go to another short break. I'm doing some good cliffhangers today. When we come back, if you could talk about how you deal with that with your practice.
Absolutely.
We'll be back in 2 minutes. You're listening to Relationships 2.0.
Diagnosed with breast cancer. Both of my daughters were pregnant, and everything I was looking forward to turned into everything I was going to miss. First words, first steps. Today, those babies are 3. I'm with them all the time. I don't know what's next, but I know I'm here today.
A Susan G. Komen grant helped pay for Alanthia's surgery, and today she's caring for her grandchildren. Help save lives. Visit IamSusanGKomen.org. A public service message from Susan G. Komen.
America's wounded warriors are coming home. After serving on foreign shores, these brave men and women are returning to their families and communities. Many have wounds you can see, and many have wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Now that these warriors are back home, they are ready to enter the civilian workforce. To help, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps warriors translate their military experience to the civilian workplace. These extraordinary men and women bring proven world-class job skills and a unique perspective on teamwork to the job. And to ensure the right warrior finds the right job, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right match. When you hire a wounded warrior, you hire an intelligent, talented, and committed new employee. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Do you tend to overreact and let your emotions rule your interactions with others? Do you become defensive or find it difficult to see things from another's point of view? Hi, I'm Michelle Skeen. You're not alone. Despite the fact that we all have to deal with people in our daily lives, many of us have difficulties with interpersonal relationships. My suggestion? Pick up a copy of the Interpersonal Problems Workbook. This book combines powerful evidence-based techniques for strengthening relationships in all areas of your life, whether it's at home or work, with a significant other, a parent, or your child. To find out more about the Interpersonal Problems Workbook, go to my website, www.michelleskeen.com. Again, www.michelleskeen.com. Pick up a copy and improve your relationships.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm chatting with Michelle Fondin, the author of The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda. Oh, and I'd like to share Michelle's website with you. It's www.michelle, M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E, Fondin, Fondin.com. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
So when you are, is part of your process to empower people to, to switch out of this kind of victim position into, and take another role in dealing with their lives?
Yes, absolutely. So one of my catchphrases is you need to take responsibility for your own life. We're not responsible for what happened to us in our infancy, in our childhood, in our teenage years. Maybe in our teenage years we do take responsibility. But, each and everything that happens in our lives is there for a reason. And so taking responsibility means not taking blame. It doesn't mean to take blame. It means that I'm going to take responsibility for what it is that's going on in my life, my own interpretation of what went on, and then I'm going to use that to learn and grow. And so I really teach students that this is a tool. for example, if I had not looked at my cancer as a learning experience, if I hadn't looked at it as something to transform myself, then I wouldn't be teaching Ayurveda today.
Right.
And this is creating a beautiful career for me, but it's also a beautiful vocation to help others realize that they can live in optimal health. So
Right.
the cancer, yeah, it sucked while going through it. I will not joke with you on that one. It was terrible. It was a terrible
Right.
3 years of my life, but that being said, it created in me the motivation and the will to help others heal as well. So you can always take it and turn it around for good.
So, do you have, I mean, besides your own fabulous story, can you share an example of maybe how that's worked in your practice? Give an example of one of your clients that made that kind of transformation.
Well, I have a story of a really young girl. She's 19. Actually, I believe she's only 18. But, she went through, which I didn't know, her mother actually told me this. She was sexually abused by a young neighbor daughter who was maybe a few years older than her for years. She turned to drugs and alcohol and was kicked out of school, put in an alternative school. And this is all before the age of 16. She had eating disorders. And so talk about a past, right? In her very little life, her very little 18-year life. And when she came to me, she had been in recovery for about 6 months. She came to learn about Ayurveda and to live an Ayurvedic lifestyle. And she told her mom, Mom, the only thing I really want to learn is meditation. I want to learn how to meditate. I want to learn how to calm my mind.
Yeah.
And she said, I have been through so much in my little life. I've been through more than most adults have been through. And she said, but I don't look at it as something that happened to me. She said, I don't look at it as something that I'm lamenting about. And she said, I'm picking myself up and I'm knowing that I'm going to have a better life from now on forward. And I thought, wow. I said, that strength in that little girl is just phenomenal for having been through so much. And she said, I want to become something so I can help others too who are dealing with eating disorders, who are dealing with addiction. And I just thought, wow, what a beautiful way of turning your life around and just realizing that, she could have gone to a space of just staying rooted in self-pity.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you a flip side. A flip side was I also counseled an 18-year-old boy who had been through a similar story, but more dealing with drug use. And he was framed by another drug dealer in his high school and somehow was in the possession of marijuana, which was not his, but someone had put it in his locker. And he was very bitter. He was very, and I sat with him with his mother and I explained to him, look, you're 18. This is an opportunity for you to move forward, to move on. And he couldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He said, I will not do this. I cannot let go of this anger. I cannot let go of this hatred. I cannot believe what was done to me. And this had been already 2 years that this had occurred. And, so two completely different ways of dealing with the past.
And, that brings up a really interesting point when you talk about, how the mind-body connection and what an important role emotions play. So if you have someone who is chronically angry, kind of like we've all at some point in our lives met that person who's just kind of angry at the world.
Right.
They've had, series of, unfortunate experiences, some that, had to do with bad luck and maybe other choices, or they were a victim of other people. But nonetheless, their outlook is negative, and they tend to be pessimistic. And can you talk about the impact that that kind of emotional, um, motion and outlook have on physical health and well-being?
Yeah, it's very, very connected. And, sometimes we believe that we are victims of our own personalities. And let me give you an example. As we mentioned, the mind-body types, the Pitta type is the most fiery of the three. So the Pitta type has the most fiery personality. And when the Pitta type goes out of balance, they do experience that anger. They spout off that fire. They experience heavy criticism of others and of themselves. They experience heavy judgment of others and of themselves. Now, that's an innate part of their personality. However, awareness of that part of your personality can allow you not to have that part of your personality take over. So you have the conscious choice. So you're not even a victim of your own personality. Yeah, you have that aspect, and that aspect is always going to cloud your judgment somewhat. But what you need to realize is that you're something greater than that. So you have this, you're a conscious choice maker. So, and I talk about that in the book, being that the person that is you, the person that is your soul, your spirit, the person that's your higher self, that is higher than this trait that you were born with.
Yeah.
You have to access that part. And really, once you access that part, you can go beyond. And even though you may get a little bit angry or a little bit irritated or feel judgmental or critical, it won't affect your health because you are overriding that aspect. It's when you don't override it that it definitely affects your health.
Well, that's where that whole idea of moment of choice comes in, right? I mean, we're constantly faced with a moment of choice. You can take this path or this path. You can choose to be really critical and negative toward this person, or you can choose to be more positive and supportive.
Exactly.
And so we're constantly faced with behavioral choices. Now, I think when people feel like and say, well, this is just who I am, which, is is kind of a pet peeve of mine because it's a cop out. I am who I am.
Yeah,
as if the possibility of change doesn't exist, right? And also, it's kind of like a Twinkie defense for bad behavior.
Yes.
Right? This is just the way I am.
So
now,
we always have the choice no matter what.
Yeah, and I think we're both acknowledging, like, I always say that, I feel like I was born with a lot of joy juice. Like that definitely makes it a little bit easier maybe for me to make a more positive choice. It doesn't mean that I don't go to the dark side, but I also feel like, my children were blessed in that way too, that they have a lot of joy juice. That helps. There are people who are just, born to have maybe a more depressive presentation. And so they have to overcome more, but they can. It's just that it's more challenging.
And, and there are flip sides to both sides. So, for example,
we're out of time and everyone. What? Oh, I didn't say that. I don't know why. That's so weird.
Oh.
That's so weird. Okay. Something's going on in the control room.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't say we were out of time. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, I said there are flip sides to both.
Right.
For example, that someone, and I'm with you right there, that I'm someone who's naturally very optimistic, upbeat, and joyful. So but the flip side of that is that I tend to be overzealous and over trusting and over jumping into things when maybe I should be more reflective.
Right.
And so.
Right.
It's a good compliment to have someone who is a little bit more sober in the sense of a little bit more serious, reflective, introspective, and they're not, as upbeat and joyous, and they're going to be a little bit more cautious. So, everybody has their weaknesses to overcome, but really the constant should be growth.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about any part of the book that you think is really important or any aspect of Ayurveda that you want to communicate to the audience.
Absolutely. One of the most important aspects that I believe it separates Ayurveda from any other healing medical system, is spiritual health. And really, spiritual health is something that if we don't connect to that aspect of ourselves, it's very difficult to heal fully. The spiritual health that I speak of, it could be a religious practice if you have a religious persuasion, but really it's more about not only connecting to spirit, it's about connecting to that higher aspect of yourself that I spoke about earlier. And this is only done through silence. This is only done through mindfulness, meditation, visualization, getting immersed in nature, unplugging yourself from the world and going alone and being with yourself and being in that silent space. And really, it's only in that way that healing can occur. We spend all of our lives looking to the outer world for approval, looking for the outer world to learn and expand and grow. But it's time we really looked inward to our inner world, which is just as vast as our outer world.
Yeah. Do you, it reminds me of a conversation that I was a part of, a week or so ago about these vision quests. Have you ever been on one of those? So,
no, I haven't.
Well, there are a number of, I think it's usually happening with like seniors in high school, or a lot of times freshman year of college. There might be things where you go, the kid goes out into the wilderness. They're alone. They have, kind of a safety measure in place, but they're really by themselves and alone with their own thoughts and nothing else. And it's a way for them to, I think, reach a higher consciousness and maybe feel more confident about their abilities. Are you familiar with it, or do you have any thoughts about it?
I'm not. One thing that came to mind when you were explaining it, though, was preparation. The thing with doing something like that is that most of us are not prepared for that. And I just want to say that in this day and age, we're always so connected, we're always so on, that I believe to immediately disconnect and be found alone in the wilderness somewhere would be the ultimate shock. Because we're not accustomed to doing that. So, that has some value. I said most people probably should start with baby steps. I'm not saying that it would be
that's
bad.
a really good point. And I think that, and I want to say that's a really good point in that so often, we just have this feeling like I need to transform my life, and what can I do? And people, swing from one end of the pendulum to the other, and then they don't last very long because it's too extreme. And one of the things that I love about your book is that it really takes people through kind of a process, and that, I don't know, would it be correct for me to say that people can work on different parts of the wheel at different times? It's not like you have to do one whole big rehab of...
No.
Right?
Well, that's actually what I recommend. So I recommend that, start with the areas where you have the most weaknesses. So if you're needing healing in your relationships, or one of your relationships, for example, start with that spoke of the wheel. If it's your physical health, you can start with that. And, this is a continuum. It's not as if you're going to work through all these aspects of the wheel and be like, okay, now I'm healed. Everything is good. It's a continual process. But it's understanding the process and understanding that healing is holistic. And it's understanding that you can have the tools in your back pocket. Once you read this book and go through Ayurveda, you have these tools that you can take out each time you need them.
And it's important to make those connections, as you do in your book and as Ayurveda does, that everything's connected, right? To bring awareness to that all of these aspects are connected, so that one is going to impact another, and positively or negatively.
Yeah, and oftentimes when you start healing in one aspect of the wheel, immediately many other aspects fall into place.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, Michelle. I really enjoyed our chat, and I love your book, and I recommend it for everyone. The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda by Michelle Fondin. Thank you, Michelle.
So much, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Be well.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
I'll be back next week. Thanks for joining me.
KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 a.m., the station that leaves no listener behind.
I'm Tom Busby, CNBC Radio. The market's kicking off the new week with a pretty big sell-off that's on renewed worries about Greece and a soaring U.S. dollar, making stocks too costly for many investors. Right now, the Dow is down big, down 209 points, all 30 stocks in negative territory. The Nasdaq is down 63. Some stocks, though, are higher today. Cable companies, that's after Charter Communications reached a deal to buy Time Warner Cable for about $55 billion. That would make it the nation's second biggest cable and broadband provider behind Comcast, the owner of CNBC's parent company. Now, shares of Time Warner right now up 7.5%. Shares of Charter up 4%. Cablevision is up 4%, and even Comcast a little bit higher. It was a mixed bag of economic data out today. Orders for big-ticket durable goods down slightly in April, but business investment was higher. And sales of new homes up nearly 7% that same month, but prices up 5% in March. Tom Busby, CNBC.
Have you had trouble with online dating? This is eHarmony founder Dr. Neil Clark Warren. We've created a new solution, EH Plus. EH Plus combines the personal attention of a matchmaker with eHarmony's extensive pool of great singles. EH Plus gives you hand-selected matches and freedom from being online. Get started today. Call 855-930-LOVE. That's 855-930-LOVE.
With KudaSign, paperless e-signing is a no-brainer for any business that requires legally binding signatures fast. That's because KudaSign offers everything you should expect from an electronic signature solution for just $1 per month. KudaSign cuts document turnaround time as much as 90%, thanks in part to its #1 rated mobile app. And KudaSign's secure cloud stores documents for on-demand tracking and retrieval, saving you even more time and money. Don't think twice. Get KudaSign now for just $1 per month. Go to KudaSign.com.
We supply the words. You paint the picture. AM 1050 KCAA.
It gets real, it's live, it's really live, local and in motion. Every day on KCAA, the Inland Empire's only live local motion talk. KCAA 1050 AM and KCAAradio.com.
Exploring science in the sea. Every time you take a breath, you're drinking in life-giving oxygen. When our planet was born, though, the atmosphere contained almost no oxygen at all. Oxygen was first pumped into the atmosphere billions of years ago by microscopic organisms in the oceans. Cyanobacteria were the first organisms on Earth to use photosynthesis. They combined sunlight with carbon dioxide, seawater, and nutrients to create the food that sustained them. This process also produced oxygen, which was released into the water. Some of the oxygen eventually made its way into the air. Recent research says that cyanobacteria may have been adding small amounts of oxygen to the atmosphere as early as 3 billion years ago. But large amounts didn't start showing up until less than 2.5 billion years ago. There are several possible explanations for the delay. One says that a lot of iron was dissolved in the seawater. As the cyanobacteria began to produce oxygen, it combined with the iron molecules to produce iron oxide. This sank to the bottom, forming beds of iron ore. According to this idea, only after the iron in the water was used up did the oxygen begin to escape the oceans and enter the atmosphere. However it got there, the oxygen made possible the development of the oxygen-breathing organisms that fill our world today. Everything from sharks to kangaroos to people. And we're all breathing oxygen produced by other organisms, the grass and trees on land, and the cyanobacteria that still populate the world's oceans. For the University of Texas Marine Science Institute at Port Aransas, I'm Holly Brawley.
Welcome to the Al Palazzo Show. This is where I have a vision for San Bernardino for the next 100 years. Before we get started, I would like to mention the League of United Latin American Citizens of the Inland Empire, Council 3163. They are putting on a tribute and reception in honor of Officer Gabriel Garcia. He was the young police officer that was shot. He is now undergoing physical therapy. The event will be this Saturday, April 18th. It will be from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the VFW Post 8737. Its address is 2018 Foothill Boulevard, San Bernardino. For the past 2 months, I have talked a lot about different types of development: residential development, commercial development,